HCAM programming is supported by viewers like you. Thank you.
And by Angels Garden Center, growing in Hopkinton since 1957.
And by Hopkinton Drug, an integrative pharmacy and community partner since 1954, providing customized compounded medication in their on-site lab, nutritional supplements, and a knowledgeable staff. Hopkinton Drug, believing food, exercise, and community, along with an integrative approach to medicine, can help you achieve your wellness goals.
You're watching HCAM TV, and for more Hopkinton, visit HCAM Ed.
You are good to go.
All right. Thanks, John.
Through the chair, you're live on HCAM TV.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Good evening, everyone. This is Gary Trendle, Chair of the Hopkinton Planning Board. It is 7 p.m. on April 3rd, 2023. I hereby call our meeting to order. This open meeting of the Hopkinton Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistently with the previously signed and act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension of the remote meeting provisions of Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order suspending certain privileges of the open meeting law. The new law has two major parts. First, the new law allows public bodies to continue providing live, adequate alternative means of public access to the deliberations of the public body, instead of holding meetings in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public. Second, the new law authorizes all members of the public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. For this meeting, the planning board is convening by video conference via Zoom app as opposed to the town's web meeting calendar and the board's agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting is being broadcast by HCAM through multiple channels. Please note this meeting is being recorded. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. With regards to public comments, not every agenda item will feature public comment, but for the items that will, after members of the board have spoken, the chair will afford public comment. Please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Begin with your name and address, and you will be afforded 3 minutes for your questions or comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. Just so that people are aware, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has recently extended this provision to allow for remote meeting until when, John?
March 31st, 2025.
Okay, so we've got another 2 years for the time being, but I think that members of this board would agree that it works well. It works well for public participation, and for many of this, we are grateful that we have this ability to meet remotely. So from an agenda perspective tonight, I'm going to quickly run through this. We have had a couple of requests to continue. So on the administrative front, we have an update on Turkey Ridge with regards to the open space. We have an acceptance for Fox Hollow Road. We have a board liaison update for those of us that are liaisons to their boards. And we'll cover minutes at the end. We have a continued public hearing on inclusionary zoning. We did hear back from legal on our proposed changes. The trails, hopeful that we'll be able to wrap that up tonight. 17 Wilson Street, we did get updated materials from them today, and we'll talk as a board if we're comfortable moving that discussion forward, or if we want to continue it until the next meeting. And then the last two hearings here for Elm Street and for Parks and Rec, those applicants have requested those meetings be continued until April 24th. So if you are here for either Elm Street or for the pickleball and tennis courts on over at the Fruit Street Fields, we are going to be continuing those hearings. And maybe we'll just take care of, actually, let's go ahead and open the public hearings. So we'll open the public hearings for the
you kind of need to do roll call first.
Oh, thank you, Mary.
Sure.
It's been a long day. I forgot about that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mary. Doing her service as the vice chair. Members, when I state your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary,
Yes, I'm here.
Rob, Rob, I can see you. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can. Yes.
All right, sorry about that. I'm here, obviously.
All right. Jane,
Jane, present.
Ron,
Ron Prefer, present.
Elise,
I'm here.
Paul,
Here.
Matthew,
Present.
and I, of course, am here. Fran is not able to join us tonight, unfortunately. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Gilsich,
John Gilsich, present.
Ms. Pemberton,
Stephanie Pemberton, present.
and Mr. Paradis.
Phil Paradis from Beta, present.
All right. Thank you all. All right. So, John, I always forget. Do we need to vote to open the public hearings that are being continued?
No, they're already open.
Already open. Okay. So, given that we don't have any new hearings, then I guess we don't need to vote on that. But I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearings for 86 Elm Street and for 17 Pratt Way until April 24th, 2023.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob, yes.
Fran? Sorry, Fran's not here. Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron?
Ron, yes.
Elise?
Elise, yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. All right, let's get into our administrative items, and we'll start with Turkey Ridge. Is Shane on?
Through the chair?
Yes. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Shane is currently away, so I think he may be on the call, but he's really not able to answer any questions right now. So hopefully I can help you guys out.
Okay. All right. So I was going to ask that you could walk through your proposal for us, and either John might be able to share the visuals, or if you want to share them yourself, either one should work.
Okay, great. No, I'd be happy to talk about the proposal. I'm sorry.
Court, I can run through it if you want, if it's easier.
Shane.
Sorry.
No worries. Hi, Shane.
Sorry, I'm on vacation in Florida with the family, so I'm just trying to log in here. And
That sunshine looks great. Well,
yeah, it's a lot if you haven't seen the sun in 3 months. So,
which John, I'm assuming you can go ahead and pull up the drawings to share. Shane, what do you want to start with?
yeah, that latest proposal we sent, Gary, the email with the plan with a red line, kind of our proposal to clean up that open space.
Bear with us one second.
As you guys saw, we've already cleaned out any debris, rocks, or anything that have gone into the open space, and then to clean it up and kind of mitigate the disturbance, we've presented this plan, which Gary, you and I had spoke. It's basically anything in red is new. Looking to build a new retaining wall, similar to the loose lay property line walls along the open space to kind of delineate the open space area versus the lot 5 area. We looked at the trees that are there. They're red oak and maple trees. So looking to plant back some new maple trees. We spaced those accordingly with growth. And then as you guys walked the site before, we've already hydro seeded the entire area, looking to obviously maintain the hydro seed and then mulch the entry area. That's where we think the trailhead's going to be.
All right, thanks, Shane. And as Shane alluded to, he and I did have a conversation about this. And I'll just so the board knows, I did also reach out to a few folks on open space and HALT just to get their perspective. And from a feedback perspective, a couple of things. One, organizations always like to see some type of immovable barrier that delineates the open space from the other land, just to help ensure that landowners don't slowly creep into it. So given the surplus of rock that the applicant has on site, that was part of their proposal, is to do a loose stack stone wall, not on the open space, but on the abutting land. The other feedback was from those folks was to try to match the existing species around and with similar density, and to not sort of try to plant a forest, but to make it transition or blend. And I think the applicant took that in perspective as well. There were some comments from the group that I solicited input from to also include some shrubs. And Shane and I spoke about that, and they didn't include them largely because they didn't see much in terms of shrubs within the undisturbed open space. So that's just a quick kind of recap from my conversation with Shane. I appreciate their effort on this, and I personally really like the idea of the stone wall. I always love seeing stone walls go through woods, and I think that's a nice visual reinforcement to help identify where the open space begins. So I'll open it up to questions or comments from the board. Anything?
Gary, you this is Rob. Question, you had mentioned HALT in this, but I thought the open space was going to be, what is the end result of the open space? Is it going to be basically given to the town? Is it HALT going to be responsible for it? I'm unclear.
So the proposal is this to be donated to the town. So HALT doesn't have any involvement here, and I solicited their input just because they do maintain a certain amount of open land in Hopkinton that's under conservation restrictions. So it was really not so much that they have any sort of official say in the matter, but just as kind of best practices, they've been active in pushing for better marking of open space, in part to keep things like this from happening. So certainly their comments are non-binding in any way. It's just just me seeking some input from folks that spend a lot of time and volunteer hours to maintain a lot of the open space that we have.
Thank you for that. I think the plan looks generally good. I don't have any other feedback. Thanks.
Yes, John.
I don't know if I count as board comments, but speak now.
You're always welcome to comment, John.
So I just have two comments on this one. I think the mulch area for future trailhead should be the same as the hydro seed area with New England mix, if the board is going to accept that, just because I understand that that's the entrance that's proposed, but it really should be up to the town to figure out how the trailhead is going to start. So having that be as the rest of the open space is designed would probably be best. And then if we need to put down mulch when the time comes that a trail is going to be put in there, that would be what we'll decide. Because if my concern is if we have the mulch down there and then the town says, well, we're not going to really do mulch, or we don't like mulch at trailhead, now the town has to pay to remove it and put in what they want. So having it as the rest of the open space makes sense. And I apologize for the loud yelling in the background. The second comment is we heard from Concom and from some open space involved people that they really look for shrubs because they can establish themselves quicker. So in addition to the trees proposed, I would ask for some native shrubs, because one of the biggest concerns from conservation is that there is some Japanese knotweed in the adjacent open space or the adjacent property, even if it's not open space. And if it's just hydroseed and trees, there's a chance that knotweed can start to creep over into the open space, and it's an invasive, which is just a pain to get rid of. So having shrubs that can establish themselves quicker than trees or than hydroseed mix can help stave off that knotweed infestation.
Yeah, through the chair.
Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, just to answer some of the comments that John made. The only reason we proposed mulch is because if, back when we first did the planning board meeting, we talked about trailheads. Mulch trailheads was actually brought up to see if we would be willing to provide those. I am willing to put hydroseed and loam in that area. We just figured that was something you guys wanted because it was brought up in the original meetings. We could certainly do a loam and hydroseed. Obviously, it's going to be a New England mix that's going to grow wild, so there'll be a taller grass that's not groomed. So typically mulch at a trailhead is ideal, which is I think why you guys asked for it in the first place. So we're open to either or. In regards to plantings, we already hydroseeded the entire area. Nothing grows faster than hydroseed to stabilize the area. The other thing is that we do have you guys probably have a copy of it. We have a 2-year Japanese knotweed mitigation plan that has been put in place. It's in our HOA. It's in the DEP order conditions. So we've been treating that knotweed with Pantene for a year now. So we have another year of just maintenance monitoring. Our number one goal is so that, this was a part of the special conditions was that knotweed doesn't make its way into that space. So I just wanted to bring up those comments, but we're open to anything you guys want to do.
All right. Thanks, Shane. Members of the board, thoughts on mulch versus hydroseed and potential for shrubs? And I would say I'm hopeful that we can get closure on this tonight. So I think if we wanted to include shrubs, we're also going to need to figure out what kind of shrubs. And we can certainly ask the applicant for that if we think that that would be an advantage.
Sorry, the other comment was I didn't want to also densely populate that area too much. It's not a large area, so planting shrubs and, it's obviously going to be the trailhead and the entry into the wetlands and to the open space. I think you got to take into consideration the slope that's there. I think if we, I can plant shrubs. I think it's going to populate that area too much, almost landscape the open space, and nothing is going to match anything around it. It's a pretty bare wooded area with maple trees, oak trees, and a leaf bottom. It's, again, we're here to work with you guys, but to me, it just doesn't seem the right fit. But
all right, thanks, Shane. Let's go to Ronnie. He's got his hand raised. Ronnie, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. If we're talking about choices here, I'd obviously would go with the hydroseed purely because of it tends to be more soil stability versus a mulch. But again, aesthetically, shrubs look nicer, but I actually would still, in this case, go with the hydroseed just to make it stability of the soil and less runoff laying down the road.
All right. Other thoughts from members of the board? Mary.
I can go either way with the shrubs. I think it's designed well, and along with John's suggestion of changing the mulch to the hydroseed. So I think this is good.
Thanks, Mary. Paul?
To the chair, I agree with Mary and the hydroseed, but the shrubs can go either way with. But sounds like the hydroseed might be a good option.
Okay. Anybody feel otherwise about either of those two comments? So we convert the mulch area over to hydroseed, and sounds like we're comfortable without the shrubs. Seeing nodding heads. Anybody feel otherwise? Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions on this from members of the board? And just as a reminder, part of our objective here is to get this settled so that when this comes to town meeting in a little less than a month, that we feel that the open space land is worthy of acceptance and isn't going to create additional problems or liability for the town. Matthew.
Sorry. Yeah, through the chair. How long you mentioned the applicant mentioned a 2-year mitigation plan for the Japanese knotweed. When does that go until?
Shane?
I'll have to check the order conditions. It was 2 years from the release of the order of conditions, which was last March, I believe. We've already done 4 different treatments on the knotweed. We've cut it, removed it, cut it, treated it, and then this spring, once it starts growing, we're going to cut it again, treat it, and then later on the summer, cut it, treat it, in hopes that by the next spring, it doesn't come back. They've also, they're monitoring any of the new growth if it was a spread. But we do have a mitigation plan from, disturbing any soils and having to take them off site. But pretty confident in that plan.
Thank you.
All right. So, John, do we need to take a formal vote on this? It's probably.
So this could be, so the Turkey Ridge open space is on the warrant to be accepted, right? So the concern was getting this addressed so that the board can then make a recommendation for whether to accept the land or not. So I think the best course of action would be to take a vote on whether to accept the land or not, and then basically condition that vote on this plan with the revision of the mulch area, if that's what the board wants, be done prior to town meeting.
Okay. So, question for you, Shane. Do you think you can get this work done before town meeting, May 1st?
Yeah, I do. I was actually going to propose that, see if that was easier. We've already, like I said, we've already cleared everything out of the land. We've fixed it up. We've hydro-seeded it. We can certainly remove the mulch in a couple days and hydro-seed that and put the tree plantings in. I mean, I'd have everything done before the town meeting, and certainly schedule a meeting with John to walk and inspect.
Okay. And the new stone
by the
wall
time
as well?
the town meeting comes. Yeah, should be able to put that in. I mean, we have almost a month, so I have an abundance of rock out there. So I think we'll be able to make that happen. If that's something that is going to streamline this and it's easier for everybody. I mean, we have the machines, the equipment, and the manpower to do it. So I don't have a problem with that, having it done, John, if that's what's easier.
All right. So I'm looking at the board. I think I'm comfortable taking a vote on this with a condition that it be updated per the drawing minus the minor change of hydroseeding the full area. So on that note, I will entertain a motion to recommend acceptance of the Turkey Ridge open space parcels for town meeting 2023, with the condition that that the disturbed open space be updated per plans provided by the applicant, which includes hydroseeding with New England mix, the full area, 6 trees total, split between red sunset, red maples, and red oaks, or similar species, and a loose stone wall along the bordering the edge of the open space. Sorry, John. Yes.
Oh, I just muted myself. Can I recommend we take out the or similar species? That just opens it up to discretionary decisions on somebody's part that we don't know who it is.
Sure. Friendly amendment there, and I'm just going to say red maples and red oaks.
Yeah, those should be very accurate to what's there. Also, those are matching what the street trees are, which is hence why we wanted to do those species.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? right, seeing none. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise?
Elise Mihailovsky, yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary Trendle is a yes as well. Thanks, Jane, for calling in from vacation. And we'll leave it to you to coordinate with John, but it'll keep things clean if we can get that work done.
Yep.
And completed and inspected before town meeting. So.
Yep. Thank you for the time, John. I'll be in touch. Thank you, guys.
Enjoy the rest of your trip. All right, moving on. Fox Hollow Road Street acceptance. John, do you want to quickly walk us through this one?
Yeah, so this one is a tricky one. Do you want me to go through the history of Fox Hollow? Have I given you the history on this? Okay. So Fox Hollow is a subdivision that was approved in 2014, I believe. It's been built. The road has been constructed. And then the developer abandoned it. There's about 5,000. If you remember, we amended the subdivision to remove the walls, the stone walls in the people's backyard. And then we voted to reduce the bond to $5,000 because there's only about $5,000 worth of work on the road left. So that was going to come before the board probably a year ago to have the street accepted. And then the developer abandoned the project. So after they did abandon the project, they found out and reached out to me and said, the way that and Robert Finnegan, who's the attorney for the landowners, could probably explain this in more legal detail, but essentially each parcel owned a section of the road, and the road itself was not a separately owned parcel or a separate parcel that could then be deeded over to the town. So the homeowners took on Robert Finnegan to figure all that out. He's gone before land court. They have a plan in place that is acceptable to town council. The one issue is DPW inspected the road, and it's technically an off-site issue, but DPW advised that they don't think the town should accept the road until the work is done. But there is a stormwater swale that isn't constructed on one of the parcels that's currently being constructed. And if the town accepts the road and there's a storm, that can basically wash out the basement of that unconstructed house once the swale is not, or until the swale is constructed. So DPW has recommended the town not accept the road until that swale and stormwater infrastructure is constructed so that the town is not responsible for that. There's been some back and forth, and Robert, you could probably update a little bit more with what was determined. But right now we're kind of trying to figure out if this is going to get pushed to next town meeting or if this can get done at this town meeting. So I won't hand it to Robert, but I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, John, for the update. And just a quick question. How long does it, and this is maybe a question for Mr. Finnegan, how long does it take to construct that swale that protects that house that's being built?
So I don't think it's a matter of time to construct the swale. It's the timing in the construction of the lot that is the issue. So you can't construct the swale while you're still constructing the house. So you need to basically finish the house, and I could be wrong, but you need to finish the house before you can construct the swale.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So this
sorry, hang on,
Yeah.
Rod. We're not taking public comment on this yet. I'm open to your comments. I just want to start with Mr. Finnegan. And Mr. Finnegan, what do you have to add to John's comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I am Robert Finnegan. I am the attorney for the homeowners, and through the chair, just want to make a couple of comments. This is a very dynamic situation. This notion, Mr. Gelsich, if I could ask, could you share the most recent as-built plan so we could just identify the area that we're talking about? And one correction that is both in the DPW letter and Mr. Gelsich's comments is this swale was constructed as per the as-built plan. It was done, it was completed, it was approved. It was not an issue. The beta plan that this board reviewed when they reduced the bond did not raise that as an issue. And it was only first raised as an issue for all of us when when we received the beta report, which was dated March 8th of 2023. And that was amplified by the letter that we got on the 28th of March at the selectmen's meeting, which Mr. Gelsich has indicated he shared with you that talked about the issues that are particularly noted in item number 4 of that DPW letter. But the swale, John, if you could show them between 10 and 11. It's the one on the other side of the road. That's 6 and 5. Thank you. It's this one right here. So it's this swale right here, and construction is currently underway on lot 12. And that house we met out there on site today with the contractor for the builder, the homeowner who is on the Zoom tonight, and the homeowners collectively. I represent all of the 10 Fox Hollow Road homeowners. And there's a contractor that also is involved to address the punch list of items that both Beta and DPW have identified. So we have a group of us out there, and our goal, frankly, is to do everything we can to comply with the DPW letter in a timely manner so we can go before town meeting and have the road accepted. One of the questions that was asked, I believe, by you, Mr. Chairman, was timing. We have expedited timing. We have asked for and received some bids for the work. It's about a 2.5 day job to get the swale put back in the condition that it needed to be in and that it was in prior. The reason why the swale was modified, altered, is because the contractor building lot 12 was not comfortable with his excavators going around the house on the side of the house that's toward the swale. There's no other way from the other side. You'd be going onto conservation land, and that just isn't a possibility. So it was a safety concern, very frankly, for the operator of the excavator. And while those are issues that they'll have to deal with as the house continues to be constructed, we want to make every effort to comply with what the town has done to get this road, to keep this road as an agenda item on the warrant that can be voted on. And we're going to be asking this board to to make that recommendation that the town accept this. Now, we're not asking that you do it before we finish the work. We met and we appeared before the selectmen at their meeting on the 28th. We are on the agenda for the 11th, which is a week from tomorrow. And it's our hope and goal that we are going to be able to report to the selectmen at that time that all of this work has been completed and that we will be able to comply with the regulations in both the Beta reports as amended or as updated and the DPW concerns. So that's where we are in terms of the condition of the land of the road, as it is on the ground. There's a couple of other issues that were on the DPW report and on the Beta report, and they're being taken care of. Relatively small issues, add a little riprap. There were a couple of extra concrete bounds that were there that were just going to be removed. They weren't bounds that weren't properly found and installed. And but the real issue is this swale, and so that's really the one that is, as Mr. Gelsich correctly points out, what makes this one a little tricky. So our hope is to be able to cooperate with one and all, and to continue to work with Mr. Gelsich and with the DPW and with you, the board, and also with the selectmen. So that's where we are right now. I just have one other comment. That I've been also in extensive conversations with town council. And he and I have dealt well in terms of dealing with the land court. One of the complications, which I thought would be the biggest issue, and frankly, it's turned out to be one of the simplest, is this is all registered land. And as the board no doubt is aware, that means land court. And that means heightened scrutiny and restriction when you go to record plans and do conveyances and all of that. And as Mr. Gelsich pointed out, what arose sort of from the ambiguity of the initial developer abandoning the project right after he got the release of the bond was the fact that each one of the homeowners owns to the middle of Fox Hollow Road. The road is not a separate parcel right now. So at the end of the day, what we will be asking the town to do is to take the road and each one of the individual abutting landowners will sign a release and convey or waive any and all claims to that land that the town will take. But right now, currently, each individual owner is responsible, and each of the owners collectively are responsible for maintenance, for snow removal, and for all of those things that they are so hopeful that this town will take over. So, one of the and in working through all those nuances with both land court and with town council, we've been able to resolve those issues. And one issue that I will share with you that we are having a discussion about is an issue that can address what seems to me to be the DPW's concern. John, you did indicate that you shared that letter with the board. Is that correct?
Yes, it's in the online file.
Great. Then, so if the board members take a look at the letter that the DPW wrote, it's from John Westerling. It's dated March 28th. And I really want to highlight the very second to the last paragraph from the bottom. John, are you able to share that? Thank you. Oh, fabulous. Okay. Great, thank you. Item 4 is of particular concern because the potential damage to private property, and I do not want to see the town inherit that liability. So he's rightfully concerned. Mr. Gelsich, could I ask you to flip to the very last page, which shows a photograph of this area, please? Thank you. This bottom photograph, thank you. That's it right there. I got to learn how to do this. This is what it looks like now. And what it looked like, and you can see that lot 11 is on your right-hand side. The house under construction on lot 12 is on the left-hand side. And the swale, as it was originally constructed and accepted by the town, continues to be in the original condition as it abuts lot 12. It's only in how it was altered as a result of the contractor building the house on lot 12 that you can see the differences. But the gradient is clearly still away from the road. I'm not sure. I believe that, and the contractors talked about this again today, that I'm not sure that the water flow is toward the basement. I do think it continues to go straight down, although not as direct and correctly as it would be when this is completed and done in a final version. But if the issue for the town is liability, if that's the issue, because we're asking that the town accept this and that the town do a taking for this. None of the issues that this swale presents are in any way part of the land that the town will be taking. So the town will have no ownership for that. Mr. Westerling's concern seems to me is liability. And what these homeowners have agreed to do, what I have proposed to town council, is that they sign an indemnification to the town indicating that there is any issue or damage, they will indemnify the town, so the town will inherit no liability. And in addition to that, both the homeowners and the contractor building this property have agreed that they would also agree to the additional imposition of a condition on the issuance of the occupancy permit that this swale be completely restored to its original condition, or if not better. Okay. So that seems to me to be a way that Mr. Westerly's concerns about liability could be addressed. The town could be protected. The homeowners for Fox Hollow could have the road accepted and not have to go another year without with that issue and with that this as a private way. And the homeowners could not worry about the excavator operator trying to go around the house.
Okay. All right. So here's where I'm at. There's a lot of what ifs here. And I don't doubt that might work, but we as a board, once we take a vote and make a recommendation on this, we don't have any ability to go back. And typically speaking, we don't like to condition these kinds of things because it gets really messy and complicated. And so whether it be between the swale being reconstructed, indemnification, the complexities around the town taking land from the street, This is just my take on it, and I'll open it up to the board to get their input. But given the complexities here, I think it's really important that that work be done before we take a vote on it. There's too many details and ways of managing through this for me to be comfortable with it, particularly when we have our director of our DPW issuing concerns. And no offense to you, but if it's his word versus yours on something, I tend to side with our town professionals in what their recommendations are. So for me, I'm not saying that what you're recommending isn't a potential pathway forward, but for me, it's a little premature to take a vote recommending acceptance here, because there's just a lot of loose ends that still need to be closed up. If it was just a couple of simple little markings and that sort of thing, that's where I'm more comfortable conditioning. But there's still quite a few loose ends to close up here. So I'm looking to the board to see if folks have questions, comments, thoughts, if they feel similar, if they think that there is a pathway forward here. And then I know that one of the homeowners wanted to comment. This isn't a public hearing, but I will certainly open it up to that person as well. Matthew, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I would concur. So Robert mentioned reaching out to town council. I don't see any response. I mean, that's my biggest concern is even if they agree to waive indemnity without the town's representation weighing in on whether that's practical, it just seems premature for us to do anything about this.
Other thoughts from the board?
Through the chair, this is Rob.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, this project was originally approved in 2014, and we're kind of at this point now. I know to the homeowners that live there, that's a long time, and this is still kind of hanging out there, but I guess it's still not done to the point where it's easy to say the town can accept this road. So while I sympathize with the residents that live there, this is something that is just needs to be done for the future homeowner of that house to protect their basement from flooding, and the town can accept it and not take financial responsibility if their house, a basement floods. Like that's as simple as that from my point of view.
All right, thanks, Rob. Ron?
So again, I'm not a legal expert by any stretch of the imagination, but when the attorney has spoke, he mentioned about indemnification, meaning that they would sign off that the city would not take any liability or not if something were to come. I, again, not knowing that if that's for attorney or whatever, why would that not resolve the situation?
My concern is that it hasn't been signed off yet. We don't have correspondence from our town council acknowledging that that's okay. So, if that was all done before our April 24th meeting and they wanted to revisit then this was all set and locked in, then I'd have less concern. But right now there's a whole lot of, it's not clear to me as to whether our town professionals are aligned on this. And given that there's a lot of complexity here, this isn't one that I want to get wrong.
So through the chair, so the idea, correct me if I'm wrong, is to not conclude and not vote upon in this meeting, but to gather more information so that on the 24th we can discuss it again and make a potential motion at that point.
That would be my proposal.
Okay. And in that case, I would second.
All right. Any other comments?
Chairman, can I just make one more quick comment, please?
If it's quick, sure. We're already over time.
I'm concerned that I misrepresented, and I don't want to. I didn't by any way mean to imply that what I was proposing had been accepted. In fact, town council said to me today, I'm going to try to get in touch with DPW, but I may not, and I'll get back to you when I can. So I'm just suggesting to you that this is another possible avenue that may be out there. And what I would actually ask for, which is what the board member just proposed, is that we have the opportunity to reappear before you on the 24th. I'm not asking that you accept this now. I'm not asking that this be done conditionally based on all this stuff. I agree having done, served in various capacities in my town, I wouldn't never have addressed anything like this. But what I was trying to do, I think, is kind of lay the groundwork for where we are. Our goal is to get this work done. And I would ask that if we had the opportunity that we could reappear for the 24th and say to you, we've done it, we've had it re-inspected, we'd like to go forward, or we didn't make it and we'll have to talk about, getting passed over on the warrant.
Okay, thank you. And I wasn't sure what you were asking for, so that's helpful. My expectation would be all these loose ends are cleaned up and documented, and we've got agreement from town staff that there is that their concerns have been addressed. But I certainly have no issue. My only ask is let's not repeat all the conversation from tonight on the 24th if we can avoid it. I only say that because we have pretty full meeting agendas these days, so trying to be as efficient as we can. The homeowner that started to speak earlier, and I apologize to cut you off, we just have some rules that we follow in these, but and I don't remember the name, but did you want to make a comment here?
Hi, this is
and if you can start with your name and your address.
Yeah, hello. So my name is Varadarajulu Pujari, and then my wife is so she's with me. So we are the homeowners of the lot. You see the new construction being built. So Robert is helping us to hand over the particular property. So he explained the things that needs to be addressed. The
construction is still in progress, and they have to build the septic and the deck on the back of the house. And this is the only path that we have. The other side cannot be, there is no way to go onto the back of the house. So now if we do that, and then again there will be some disruption or something to go back to get the access to that side. So if it can be put as a contingent for the occupancy certificate, that will help us. We are on a tight schedule for budget and also time. And that will add another cost that again it will be disrupted again, and then we have to go back and build it back again. And we are trying to move to Hopkinton. We have been working in Hopkinton for 15 years at Dell, and we like the school district, and we are trying to get there in summer, so the kids start the school new year's their school year, new school year there. So if it can be our builder, we talked to our builder, and our builder is he is ready to do it as part of the occupancy certificate, and we can have the inspection and see if that is everything is set as the town wanted before we get the occupancy certificates. That's our concern.
So I think it's worth noting that the occupancy certificate doesn't have anything to do with this process. This is only for the street acceptance. And this board doesn't have any involvement with the occupancy acceptance. So that's really outside of this. This is just with regards to the town accepting the street as a public street. So I'm thrilled to hear that you've been working in Hopkinton for a long time and that you're moving here. I think that's wonderful. But I think in this situation, we're really our obligation is to make sure that the work is done before the town accepts the street, and that's what we're looking for to make sure that street work is done beforehand. All right, so I think
thank you.
For the planning board, it sounds like we're comfortable. This comes back to us by the 24th. For Mr. Finnegan, as you alluded to, our expectation is that all of those open items be addressed in some capacity. I know this one's complicated. We get that, but we also want to make sure that we're covering our bases from a town perspective.
Understood, and thank you for your time.
Okay. All right. Let's go through Actually, you know what? I'm going to hold off on the board liaison updates and the minutes until the end. We're just a little bit behind, and I do see other members of the public here. So if they are here for some of those other hearings, we can keep moving forward. So let's go ahead and go to the, let's go ahead and go to the inclusionary zoning bylaw proposal. John, do you want to give us a quick update as to, we left that at the last time looking for confirmation from town council that they didn't have any concerns with the round up change. So do you want to just give us a quick status update as to where we stand?
Yep, I sent Brian Bertram an email discussing that, and he got back to me with, I don't have any issue with the language modification. So short and sweet.
All right. And can you pull that up on the screen so that everybody can see it? And I think we've talked about this one at a couple of meetings, not to mention the ZAC work that has been put into it. So do members of the board have any additional or new comments to make with regards to this proposal? And we'll go ahead and start with the board, and then we'll see if there's any additional comments or questions from the public.
I guess, Gary, I have a comment if I could.
Sure, go ahead, Rob.
Are we locked into the warrant to have all sections of this bylaw change tied in as one motion? Where I'm going with that is there's some pieces that I think some people would support, and there's some pieces I think some people would not support when it gets to town meeting. Is there any way, do we have any leeway to separate some parts of this into one article versus another? Or are we just locked into, we only have one spot on the warrant, and we have to basically provide that warrant that bylaw change for this thing, this piece of bylaw, I guess, as one item?
Yeah. So we're not in a position to add more articles to the warrant. I guess the question is, if we wanted to remove something from this, then could we do that? And John, I'm going to just confirm with you as to what we could potentially modify here. I'm also not sure that's a path we want to go down without taking a vote on it as it stands now. But John, do you have any guidance on the limits to what we could modify of this proposal and of the warrant article?
So, I mean, I guess I would have to know what would be changed, because my understanding is if it's just removing changes that are being proposed, that can be done because it's reducing the scope of the change. If someone were to propose changes to language that's already in the article or already in the bylaw, that may be outside of the scope of this article, since changing it with those new revisions weren't part of what was advertised.
So
Okay.
if I could go through the chair again one more time.
Sure, go ahead, Rob.
I would just I think the part about inclusionary zoning, which like future proofs what could come down the pike, could come down at from the MBTA communities, is something most people in town would support. And I just don't know that tying it to changing basically the dynamics of a neighborhood being developed and having affordable housing on site or requiring a special permit, people would view as completely a different thing. So that was my question. That's the genesis of my question.
Yeah. So to me, there's two pathways forward here. One is that we could opt to, I guess my preference would be that we get through our discussion here. We and John, tell me if this makes sense. We take a vote on it as it stands, and well, we have two options. We can either take a vote on it as it stands, or we can remove things from it and then take a vote on what we've removed, on what remains. So I think those are our two pathways forward. I think I'm going to look to the board to see if there are any preliminary thoughts on how we do that. I have my preferences, but I want to see what folks think. Ronnie, go ahead.
Thanks, through the chair. So, obviously this is the third time this has been brought before us, and following up with Rob had mentioned, by my understanding, there already is language, and we're just modifying language to opt out, special permits. The key difference between what is currently in the bylaws and what's proposing is a little bit more detail and a little bit more numbers changes. So there is the changes themselves can either be looked upon dramatic or not, but it's still the theme of the bylaws has not changed. It's just the nuances therein. So my suggestion would be since we've had this discussion numerous times, is to vote on as is, and then to see where people stand, or do the old-fashioned way, just do a straw poll, and then put forth official motion. So those are my two thoughts.
Yeah. So Ronnie's thought is to move forward with a vote as it stands. Looking to other members of the board, you can give me a thumbs up. You can say, no, I don't think we should. I think we should split this up. We should review and potentially change this. Paul, you're thinking we should simplify it, or we should reduce part of it and reevaluate?
Through the chair, yeah.
Okay. Other members of the board? Mary?
As a member of ZAC, I think that the way we presented it to planning board is what I support. And reiterating what Ron said, it's not a totally different section. I understand trying to, divide and conquer and have people vote on separate issues. I totally get that. But we've already had information on affordable housing in developments, and it always has been something that developers were part of the instructions were to build within the development. We are making it a little bit more explicit now, but other than that, it's not a major change to that bylaw. It is trying to make it harder to get around it with loopholes, and that's about it. So, and I think affordable housing is still a very important issue to maintain in our town. So,
thanks, Mary. Matthew, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I feel like we've discussed these proposals several times. I'm just not sure what. I feel like we've worked on them to where they are. I know there's been a couple of proposals, as John mentioned, that are slightly different than the text provided. But in terms of looking at breaking it up into smaller components, I just feel like we've had these discussions. I don't see a benefit in trying to do that this close to town meeting, where we've already gone through cycles with the town analyzing the wording and all that.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. So I'm hearing two folks that would prefer to modify this and take portions of it out. Is there anyone else that, and I know we haven't heard from everybody. I know my opinion is to vote on it as is. But is there anyone else that wants to go back and flush this out and remove pieces of it? Okay. So I'm going to suggest we move forward as it's currently written and as it's been reviewed and modified. And maybe now is a time to open it up for public input or questions. John.
So just to clarify for the conversation, the motion, were you to move forward with this, would be to recommend approval with the town council comments and the change to essentially round up in paragraph A of section 210-60. Correct?
When we get to the motion, yes. Thank you.
Okay. I just so when you go to the public comment, just so everyone knows what the actual changes are, not just how Zach reviewed it, but also including town council's additional changes.
Yes, thank you. Good clarification. Any members of the public want to ask a question or make a comment? Mr. Barker Hook.
Yes, I didn't even raise my hand. I didn't get to that button yet.
You unmuted yourself, though.
I did. You saw that happen. Ted Barker Hook, 75 Grove Street, co-chair of ZAC, and Hopkinton resident. I wanted to offer.
Sorry, Ted. Just to clarify, I don't know if you said it, but where do you live?
75 Grove Street. I think
Thanks.
I did, but
you might have. Apologize.
I just wanted to offer some perspective through statistics and hopefully not take too much time. I think that in ZAC, this came up for two reasons. Number one, we're very worried about the 10% affordable housing threshold, which I think last meeting, Mr. Benson even thought we've already gone under if you look at it in a realistic way. So that's a worry of all of us, and we need to find ways to bring more affordable housing into town. But I am also, and my sense was the Zoning Advisory Committee is also very concerned about making this town livable for more variety of people. The proposal passed ZAC 6-0, including the representative from the Chamber of Commerce. I think it's important to note. So a couple things. I looked up what Massachusetts's definition of affordable housing is. And it's housing that is affordable to someone earning below 80% of the metropolitan area median income. Below 80% of the metropolitan area median income. The Boston median income is $82,000 a year. 80% of that is $65,600 a year. So it would be housing affordable to people that earn 65.6, a household that earns $65,600 a year. To give that some perspective, I bring to you as a teacher myself, the median income for a Hopkinton teacher is $59,000 a year. As it stands right now, the Hopkinton teachers who we say we value so much cannot afford to live in Hopkinton. A Hopkinton police officer median income right now is $65,000 a year. The police officers who we say, and I honestly do, value so much, cannot afford to live in Hopkinton right now. A recent article from Trina Maki that was published in The Independent indicated that the median listing price of a house in Hopkinton right now is $1.234 million. That's up $400,000 from a year ago. I did some looking into what house can I afford type websites through realtors. To be able to afford a $1.5 million house, a family should have an income of $225,000 and be able to put $300,000 down. We are moving in a direction that makes our town affordable to a very, very, very small sliver of Massachusetts society. And I don't think that's a good direction for Hopkinton. If we want to stay above our 10%, we need to take some action. If we want to stay a town that's affordable to a wide range of people, we need to take some action. And I hope that the board will leave this as we have written it with your amendments and also vote to support it, to give it support for town meeting. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Ted. I appreciate the additional research there too. That's helpful. Other comments from the public? Mr. Gelsich.
So I just wanted to correct Ted. I have the 2022 Massachusetts Affordable Housing Income Limits. In Middlesex County, 80% AMI is for a household of one. So one person living in the household, a single professional or whatnot, is actually $78,550 at 80%.
So it'd be 78,000 instead of the 65,000 that Mr. Barker Hook referenced.
Correct. A family of four would need to have a combined income of 112,150 for 80%. 100% is $140,200.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you pulling those numbers. Any other questions or comments from the public? All right, so I think we are ready for a vote here. And just to John's previous mention, I will entertain a motion to recommend this inclusionary zoning bylaw modification with as forwarded by Zach, with the changes recommended by town council, and the change in the rounding methodology to round up that has been previously discussed in our meetings.
So moved.
Second, Ron
Second.
Prefer.
All right, does that motion work, John?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob? Rob, you're muted.
Rob Benson, no.
Jane?
Jane Marin, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise?
Elise, yes.
Paul? Paul, it doesn't say you're muted, but we couldn't hear you.
Oh.
Paul's a no.
Thank you.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. So that motion carries. And that will now go to town meeting to see how the town votes on it. All right, good discussion. Appreciate all the input there. The stuff's messy and complicated, so appreciate everyone's input. All right, moving forward to the, where are we? The trails. I see Mr. Bemis is on. Hello, Peter.
Yes, good evening. Thank you.
Really quickly, what is left before us to discuss on this amended Osmud site plan application?
So we got a positive letter from the peer review engineer, Abeda, and I can walk you through the items, or I can just kind of overview, which would be 8 sheets of on-site improvements, 3 sheets of off-site improvements, a stormwater management plan that will carry forward in perpetuity for the project. And trying to think what the one other item here. It's just another housekeeping item for the project. Oh, the sidewalks. Those are on the on-site. To me, that was probably the one other item that the board needed to focus on, was to allow us to put sidewalks at the edge of pavement. And we, in lieu of the construction detail, which was originally approved as a berm, we went forward with a slope granite curbing. And at the entrance, we still wish to have a separation of our sidewalk on the west side instead of on the east side next to the clubhouse, to get pedestrian traffic away from that building, and further west helps with the sight distance on Legacy Farm Road to cross across the street, because the sidewalks on the south side.
Peter, let's do this. Let's focus on any points of disagreement with Beta's review, or anything that has been recommended to come back to the planning board for input on.
I don't think there's any, but I know Phil Paradis was on the line. If he's still there, he can say that for you as well. But I don't believe we have any disagreement on any item, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Peter. Phil. Any concerns from your review that are still open for discussion here, or anything in particular that you want to make sure that the board weighs in on?
Yes, so the sidewalk issue has gone back and forth, and initially it was included, and then it was removed, and then the modification was the sidewalk at the main entrance. So I'm a little confused as to what exactly we reviewed. I think we recommended that the sidewalk be constructed as originally designed, with the vegetated buffer between the sidewalk and the road, for two reasons. One is it better provides stormwater infiltration, although minor, but in any case, it is contributory. And the second is it's pretty much the whole of Legacy Farms development is using this sidewalk and green strip design. So
okay, so we've got to have a little bit of discussion around the sidewalks. Anything else? Any other points of focus, Phil, from your review?
I like I said previous, we are a little uneasy about the retaining wall that would be behind. Let's see here, behind. So M4.
Peter,
M3,
are you able to
the wall
pull
behind
up
70? Oops,
sorry, Peter, are you able to pull up the drawings?
I am, if you'll allow me to share.
The wall behind 75 to 89 Weston Lane, which is adjacent to the Ashland town property and their lagoon. So we were not there when they constructed it. There's been a lot of back and forth as to how it was constructed, and they have an engineer saying it was constructed in accordance to engineering practice. I don't, again, we weren't there, so yeah, so this wall is and I don't know that you can do anything about it now, but I guess our concern as professional engineers is I don't want to own it.
Understand. Okay.
So if I can, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so we had, it's Randy Bragdon, is a professional engineer with Sohegan Valley Engineering. Randy's specialty is retaining walls. That's why we brought his firm in to look at this. And as I had described to the board members who were on site when we had our site walk, this was a controlled fill. We used a structural engineer to do geotechnical inspections for us, and we had geotechnical reports because we built buildings on top of that controlled fill. All those buildings there were part of that work activity. And at the limit of work was where we placed these boulders, and they're very large boulders, as you can see in the pictures here. And Randy did inspect this, looked at it, and said that this is a very sound structure. And we've given you a letter to that effect, and that's part of the record. We also did this as both a plan view with pictures and then sections. We drew sections through the entire area so that you could better understand what the implications were for the work here. So I believe that the wall issue has been vetted and properly constructed, and there's documentation on record to that effect.
All right. Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
Phil, any other points of concern from your review?
I do want to note that the Conservation Commission has approved the plan, and we had, so the offsite. I think the offsite swale is still an outstanding issue, but I don't think it affects the site plan as you previously approved. So I don't think that's an issue. That would still remain a Conservation Commission issue, but it's offsite.
Okay. So it sounds like the primary thing for us just to review here is the sidewalks. And Peter, yeah, why don't you?
I was going to bring it up just so you can see it. So it's in this view, and it's the right viewport where we're showing. I'm not sure if that still shows you in the center of the screen. So I hope it does. But here at the entrance, we will have the sidewalk on this would be the northeast quadrant. It'll come along the southeast quadrant to the clubhouse and connect with that entrance area. And there is a paver sidewalk that's here to this entrance. We just don't want to it would be easy for me just to take this and extend it to the road here. I just don't think it's prudent as a design engineer. I don't want to exit pedestrian traffic here. I would like them to come across and be here. This added 75 feet is important when people are traveling 50 miles an hour, which is not the posted speed, that is the observed speed that I see people driving on Legacy Farm Road. And that concerns me a great deal. I would rather them they could cross here. There is not a sidewalk on the north side of Legacy Farm Road. It's on the south side. And it's extremely important to get that pedestrian traffic a little bit further west so they're a little bit more protected as they cross the road.
Okay. So on that one, all you're doing is you're really just adding some additional sidewalk on the opposite side of the street.
Correct. And then as far as the detail for the curbing, at the lower portion of the plan, we provided in lieu of, if you will accept, the relationship of the sidewalk being at the back of pavement versus the grass strip, which is what the residents in the development actually were asking you to eliminate the sidewalk. We did not support that alternative. We felt as though the sidewalk is extremely important. We want pedestrian traffic off the travelway, but bringing it to the edge of the road will make a significant impact on those lots that are adjacent to the sidewalk. This is a very small village concept construction here. Many of these units are only 30 feet away from the edge of the travelway, and separation of the sidewalk and the pavement just adds that much more separation less separation to the house. So we felt as though it was important. So we came up with this detail where you'd have a piece of granite curbing along the edge to protect the sidewalk where the sidewalk limits are.
All right. Thanks, Peter. I personally appreciate the sloped granite there. And with regards to distance to sidewalks, it was designed the way it was, but I appreciate the granite curbing, and to me that makes the sidewalks being up against the edge of the road a bit more palatable. All right, let's open up to the board. Questions or comments from, and this can go beyond the couple of things we discussed here to the full package of changes. Ronnie, go ahead.
Yeah, very, very quick. I don't want to belabor this. I fully support having these sidewalks push to the edge, removing the strip. I think that would be, it seems like the homeowners would like that as well. My only comment is, could the screen be moved down a little bit? The crossing over point on the opposite side of the clubhouse, on the other side of the road, it was alluded to that this is for the safety of the pedestrians. And if that's the case, again, I'm 100% supportive. I was wondering if you could be a little bit more detail, because when you're saying 50 miles per hour, it doesn't matter what side of that road they're walking across, it's still going to be the same speed. So it's speeding, but the question is, why crossing, we'll say from this angle, southwest versus northeast, why is one safer than the other? I'm just confused.
So Ronnie, it's just a bend in the road. So it creates a little bit more distance to the sight lines.
Bend up top there? Okay, Thank you very much.
All right. I see a question from someone from the public. We'll get to you in just a second. Other questions or comments from the board? Matthew.
Yeah, I know you keep saying M3 from Beta about the wall. I'm just wondering if there's any way we could get a more definitive level of confidence on whether there's any issues with that. I know they defer to the engineer and building department, or we're at where we're at with the level of confidence about that's sufficient.
Yeah. So I think to Phil's point, they weren't able to observe when it was constructed. So Phil, please correct me if I'm misspeaking here, but it's just not something you're able to sign off on that it was built properly because you weren't there to observe it. To me, the applicant has provided a letter from Sauhegan to state that it was built per the drawings. So I think that was the effort to mitigate that concern.
So yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, Phil.
So this was never designed as a boulder wall or a riprap slope. It was designed as a retaining wall with a structural, a pre-sized, modular block wall type. So I'm, not to say that this wouldn't work in a design situation, but it was never designed this way. So it was just constructed. So
that's helpful. So maybe I can restate this then, and Peter, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys ended up building this differently than what was on the plans, and now you've gone back and you've had an engineer review it to substantiate that what was built will work, but it is hence the modification from what was originally in the plans.
Right. The deviation was that the original plan called for a modular block wall, and we've had some history with those and have not found them very favorable. So using something time tested like a boulder from the earth that will last thousands of years was more appealing than a block that has had failure history. So
yeah, okay. I'm not sure that's a debate we're going to have.
Okay.
But there's a lot of block walls that are that have worked very well, and there's certainly plenty of stone walls that have failed. So I'd be cautious about making that claim that because it's made from stone it won't fail.
Okay.
And I'm not about to say otherwise, but that's helpful there.
All right.
I guess one way to think about this, and I want to acknowledge that we as planning board members are not professional engineers. And that's why we rely on services like Beta. But Phil, I'm curious if you have any perspective on that review, that assessment from Sauhegan as to concerns or cautiousness about us putting weight on that review in that letter.
I don't have a yay or nay about the letter. I think I prefer as an engineer to be more hands-on than relying on someone else's word. As it is, I don't have any reason to not to discredit the letter. So again, for liability reasons, I have no reason to accept it either. So
okay, understood. So Matthew, I guess we already have a letter reviewing it. To me, we could either go get another letter to review it, or we could potentially not approve the change and have them go back and somehow retroactively build it as planned. I hear your concern, but my instinct here is that there's not, I put some emphasis, and is the reviewer from Sauhegan, is he PE stamped, Peter?
Yes, sir. And also, I just want you to say there was another engineer in a level before them. So in other words, the structural review that was done by Yankee Engineering of Worcester. And there are sealed instruments from their office as well. So Randy was we were using them for corroborating the history, not to rely on that solely. So the Yankee Engineering reports were provided.
Okay. Thank you.
One last comment on that. Yeah,
go ahead.
I appreciate the feedback from Beta on that subject, and also from Peter. So thank you. That helps.
All right. Other questions or comments from the board? And if not, then we'll go ahead and open up to the public. I think there was an Ed that had his hand raised. Ed, I don't know if you're still on.
It was a mistake.
Oh, okay. No worries, Ed.
Well,
we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Thank you.
All right. So I think we're ready to move forward here. And I do not have a printout in front of me, so I apologize as I look away and just remind myself of where we are in the public hearing outline. Just to remind folks, the decision criteria of which we're evaluating here, the planning board will be reviewing and approving if it finds that the site plan complies with the master plan special permit. 2, the site plan meets all the requirements and standards set forth in the article, the master plan special permit, and applicable design guidelines. 3, the convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the development project and in relation to adjacent areas and public ways is ensured. 4, that substantial adverse potential impacts of the development project have been adequately mitigated. 5, adequate mitigation has been provided with respect to any conditions impacting on-site safety, whether such conditions are created on-site or off-site. So I think that's what we're reviewing on, and I see someone from the public has their hand raised. And Ms. Kellogg, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question or make your comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, as a member.
Sorry, can you just state your name and your address first, please?
Nancy Kellogg, 17 Weston Lane, The Trails. So I'm a resident of The Trails, and I just want to put some input that I really would like you to approve the new plan. I know Mr. Paradise from Beta said that people will be using the sidewalks, and I just want to emphasize that they will not use the sidewalks if the sidewalks are too close to windows and doors. I just moved from a community where the sidewalks were up near the windows and doors, and no one ever used the sidewalks. They always walked in the road. So that's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so that's our decision criteria. From a waivers perspective, there are no waivers requested. Let's see, we reviewed the decision criteria. Proposed findings. So we have a series of proposed findings. I'm going to quickly read those off. The first, the proposed site plan complies with the master plan special permit. 2, that the proposed site plan meets all the requirements and standards set forth in Chapter 210, Article 26, the master plan special permit and applicable design guidelines. 3, that the proposed site plan ensures the convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the development project and in relation to adjacent areas and public ways. 4, that substantial adverse potential impacts of the development project have been adequately mitigated. And 5, that adequate mitigation has been provided with respect to any conditions impacting on-site safety, whether such conditions are created on-site or off-site. So if we wanted to add any additional findings, now would be the time to discuss those. I think that the details that we've discussed are all largely covered under these findings, but does any member of the board have any additional findings to consider? Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads. So I think we're okay there. Conditions. So we do have a number of conditions, and I am required to read these aloud. So I'm going to go through these, and I would ask members of the board if you have other conditions you'd like to consider. We'll go ahead and discuss those after I read through these. So number one, a town clerk certified version of this decision shall be recorded at the Middlesex South County Registry of Deeds prior to the issuance of a building permit for the work that is subject to the decision. And I'll also say that we also have the ability to revise these if need be. So we can circle back if need be. 2, the Director of Municipal Inspections inspects projects under construction for compliance with the approved decision of site plan review. This includes the driveway, roadway, and infrastructure construction shown in the plan if applicable. If the Director of Municipal Inspections determines at any time before or during construction that a registered professional engineer or other such outside professional is required to assist with the inspection of the stormwater management system or any other component of the site plan, the applicant shall be responsible for the cost of these inspections. 3, all construction activities shall adhere to applicable local, state, and federal laws and regulations regarding noise, vibration, dust, sedimentation, and the use of, interference with, or blocking of town roads. 4, the applicant shall be responsible for mitigating all construction-related impacts, including erosion, siltation, and dust control. The applicant shall maintain all portions of any public way used for construction access free of soil, mud, or debris deposited due to use by construction vehicles associated with the project, and shall regularly sweep such areas as directed by the Director of Municipal Inspections in consultation with the DPW Director. 5, the applicant shall regularly remove construction trash and debris from the site in accordance with good construction practice and the construction management plan. No tree stumps, demolition material, trash, or debris shall be burned or buried on the site. 6, all exterior lighting within the development project, whether shown in the approved site plan or required by Mass State Building Code, shall be shielded, directed downward and not upward or outward, and shall not spill onto adjacent property. 7, all fixed mechanical equipment on the site shall be screened from view from the ground. Such screening shall be sufficient in the opinion of the Director of Municipal Inspections. 8, if construction is not commenced within 3 years of the date of filing of the site plan decision with the town clerk, approval shall be automatically rescinded unless such time is extended by the board. For the proposed purpose of this condition, the term commenced shall mean commencement of site work. John, do we need that one since site work has already begun?
I would leave it in there.
Okay. 9, a completed signed construction management plan shall be submitted to the planning board prior to the commencement of any site work. This applicant shall also submit a revised full plan set, which incorporates all the modifications made during the public hearing process and any required in this decision. 10, a completed signed long-term operation and maintenance plan shall be submitted to the planning board prior to the commencement of construction. This can be combined with the construction management plan if preferred by the applicant. This feels a little wonky given that it's already under construction, but I understand the intent of this is to make sure that these documents exist. 11, erosion and sedimentation control measures shall be implemented during the construction period in accordance with the approved site plan and the construction management plan. If they are found to be inadequate, the applicant shall immediately correct any deficiencies. 12, the planning board shall receive a sign-off confirming that the site contractor or any major subcontractors have received the construction management plan prior to the commencement of any site work. 13, construction may occur only between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and Saturdays between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. pursuant to Chapter 141, Article I of the Town of Hopkinton General Bylaws. 14, the applicant shall submit final as-built plans to the planning board prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy. 15, the applicant developer shall provide the principal planner with a project point of contact and contact information prior to the issuance of the building permit. This point of contact information shall be kept current through correspondence to the principal planner until the final certification of occupancy is issued or construction is otherwise considered complete. 16, a copy of NOI and signed SWIP shall be provided to the planning board prior to construction. 17, a signed copy of the O&M plan shall be submitted to the planning board prior to construction. 18, the applicant developer shall provide a signed illicit discharge statement prior to commencement of construction. Any additional conditions to consider? I think we're pretty good, and it's certainly helpful, Peter, that the drawings represent what this is going to be. So thank you for those. All right. We're at a point where we will entertain final comments from either the planning board or from the public if they so desire. All right, I see none. So then on that note, I will entertain a motion that the board accept and approve the findings as previously read aloud. So we're going to go ahead and vote on the findings first, and then we'll vote on whether or not we approve the site plan.
So moved.
Ron Prefer second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Rob, yes.
Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron?
Ron, yes.
Elise?
Elise, yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes. So those findings, that motion for the accepting the findings carries. And then at this point, I will entertain a motion that the board approve the site plan with the conditions that were previously read aloud by the chair.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Prefer.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes. That carries unanimously. On that note, I will entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Rob, second.
Ron.
All right, Rob with the second. Assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. So thank you, Peter.
Good evening. Thank you.
We look forward to seeing that project finished off. So,
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. Let's
Chair?
move. Yes. Sorry.
Sorry, when we continued 17 Pratt Way, I forgot to include that since it's a minor site plan, the deadline for the decision is April 7th. So we need to continue that to May 4th as well.
Okay. So on that note, I will entertain a motion to extend the decision for 17 Pratt Way to, what'd you say, John? May 4th? May 7th.
May 4th.
Oh, May 4th.
So moved.
Okay.
Second, Ron.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron?
Ron, yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
Gary's a yes. All right. Thanks, John. All right. Let's move forward to 17 Wilson Street. And you know, so John and I had some discussion about this earlier, and you know, we do have standards as to that materials for review be submitted the Tuesday prior to meetings. We try to be pretty accommodating. We know that you know, things sometimes take a little extra time. In this situation, we did not get the revisions until midday today. So I just want to quickly have a discussion with the board. And I think we have two options here. I don't know if folks have had a chance to review. We could have the applicant quickly go through it now. And if we felt ready, then we could go ahead and take a vote on it. The other option is that we go ahead and we continue it until a later point in time so that not only members of the board can review more closely, but that abutters or members of the public can review as well. So I have had a chance to review them. I can't speak for everybody, but I just want to kind of check the pulse and see how if people have thoughts on how to best move forward. Ronnie?
I also had an opportunity to look over it, but again, I'm not sure if the abutters, who are the more pressing individuals in this matter, have, and I would not want to discuss without them having ample time to review.
All right, Matthew?
I was going to say the same thing.
All right, and maybe what I'll do here is just ask Mr. Cutter and Mr. Shambo, as the two primary abutters here, if you both have had the chance to review. Tom?
This is Tom Shambo. I'm down in New York City. I didn't get the email from John until I got to my hotel room at about 7:15, 7:30. I did quickly review it, and I wrote a quick email off in response to it. So that's where I stand.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Mr. Cutter, have you had a chance to review?
If Tom's ready, I'll be ready to shoot.
Okay. I think that to some degree, as much as I don't like bending the rules, I'm eager to wrap this one up, and I know our April 24th meeting has a full plate. So I guess I'm looking at the board. Are folks comfortable moving forward with this? Okay. I'm seeing thumbs up here. So, all right. Who from the applicant wants to walk through their final proposal here? I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I can take it there.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
So I appreciate that. Thank you for walking through this, and I'm looking forward to hearing the comments from Ed and Tom here on the final comments they have in the email at the end of this. So we've taken everything into account that you guys mentioned at the last meeting. Our primary focus was on the front entrance area, which you'll see later on. We did provide a revised letter describing every area and every point, to obviously include the removal of rocks that Tom had mentioned previously, and cleaning that up where the loom's going to go, the seating. So we try to be descriptive in every area that we've done it. So the main overview that you saw at the first slide, details all those points. The letter is the bulk of, what will be done, what will be included, but the majority of the rework here was in the front area. And, basically as we had gone back and forth with, all parties, yourselves, the abutters and our teams, really our end goal was, to screen this thing completely, and that, that's going to need to be done with a fence here. So, and this is what we finalized with our few mock-ups to get here, but I think this will cover everything completely from the view. The renderings do look attractive. We brought the fence closer up to the road, the scenic fence. We'll still do our best to include the tree area, include screening up the left side, or include cleaning up the left side that Ed had talked about. But Rory can show you a couple more slides here to show, the view from the street. And this kind of details the last kind of presentation that we've had. So this is the bulk of what the changes were. The bulk of what we had discussed previously. We're still incorporating the 750 series fence screening, the industrial grade, which I think helps the most for the screening of the abutters view, including the trees. But this is kind of the front work that we've modified. So that's basically the bulk of the changes that were done.
All right, thanks, Chris. Two quick questions from me before I open up the board, but we continue to talk about the rocks and boulders in the disturbed portion of the buffer zone. And I don't recall seeing a note or acknowledging that on the plans.
It's definitely in the letter. In the letter, it talks specifically about the removal of those boulders. And we put that into that letter that would be done.
Okay. And then my second question, at the last meeting, we had some discussion on the boulders along that are parallel to the access road.
Yeah, I mean, I'll parallel to the access road. The goal was there to, I mean, we're going to be providing the loom and seeding and bringing some grass and new life to that area. So as we're moving boulders, we'll do our best to get, you know, some of those cleaned up and removed based on Ed's comments.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Mary.
I have, thank you, Gary. I have a question for John, and that is whether or not the letter that is officially a part of the plans. So if we approve the plans as submitted, does that include the descriptions in the letter, or do those have to be specified in the conditions?
Through the chair, no, the letter would not be part of the approval package. So you would be approving the plans as shown. And unless there's a note in the plan showing the language of the letter, it's not going to become part of the decision.
Okay. So we need to specify the parts of the letter, or perhaps, you know, the entire part of it into conditions.
Correct.
Yes. Thank you. And, you know, I think, I did review all this material. I think the plans are good. I like the new option for the front, and I'm just concerned about it being, clear that when the letter talks about remediation, cleaning up certain areas, that it is removing the boulders, because, you know, putting down seed and loam or and so on doesn't help if there's still boulders there. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Mary. Ronnie.
Yeah, I just want to second what Mary's saying about I do like the front much better. And briefly, obviously the letter does not count, as we just found out. But the only comment from the applicant that I wish was a little bit more clear was you will lay a loom and move boulders where applicable, and it was a bit. I'd rather have more minutia detail, more finite detail, saying everything will be boulders will be removed, and it will appear as it had prior to construction. There was this when you were discussing it was like, oh, you talk to Ed and make it. No, I would either black and white. It will be moved. These will be moved. Done. So that way, there's not conditional. That's all.
So Ronnie, on that note, because the letter doesn't mean anything, we're going to need to condition those anyways. So this is our opportunity to write our own specific language, of which they're going to have to comply with. Assuming
other than that, I think the rendering is very, very nice. I do appreciate the CAD drawing looked really nice.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right. If not, then let's open it up to the public. Mr. Cutter, I see your hand raised. And just as a reminder, if you can start with your name and
you bet
address, and just a reminder, please keep it to 3 minutes.
I'll do the best I can. My name is Edward Cutter. My family and I have lived at 21 Wilson Street since 2000. When I looked at the plan, at first I was confused because it wasn't clear what was happening on the left side of the entryway going from the street towards where the fence gate was before. But I read the note in the Wilson Street screening area of the letter, which said the left side of the entrance will be remediated, whatever that means. But it said to reflect the condition that was present before the start of construction, which to me makes it totally clear that the boulders and if the rocks or other tree stumps or whatever that were brought there as a dumping area, they're all going to be cleared out. And now I'm hearing that there's some issue from Grasshopper. Are we all agreed that ultimately, not only will the buffer zone area, which is further down the entryway, be cleared of what was piled up for boulders, but also this other area that's very close to the street will be cleared. If that's the way it is, I'll stop talking about that issue.
Yep, we haven't formalized it yet, but I anticipate having conditions that address both of those areas.
Okay, thank you. And I would also like to know that where the boulders will be relocated, if that will be within the project site. If it's not within this parcel, it's none of my business where they're going. But if they're going to be dumped someplace within the proposed site for the solar farm, I think we all should know, and I want to know where they're going to put them, hopefully not in my front yard. Well, that would be off-site, so I guess they could do it.
Yeah, I think in fairness to the applicant, I think that while we can't have them in the buffer zone, I think they can put them elsewhere on the site. But not within the buffer zone.
Subject to our view as to that. I mean, they may not be in the buffer zone right now where it's close to the street, but that's just a totally improper place to dump a pile of boulders.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two other more procedural matters. One, I suggest for the board's consideration, and you might be doing this anyhow through a condition or some other vehicle, that there should be a schedule listing all work yet to be performed, including scenic road requirements, with target dates and consequences for failure to perform. In light of past problems, perhaps the schedule might require advance notice to the board of any substantial work such as installation of the fence around the switch gear, with the opportunity for the board or its agent to observe the performance of the work. So that's really, I mean, that's a condition suggestion to the board. It's just one more. The special permit obligates I guess I've taken my picture out. I don't want to miss the opportunity. Well, I guess I won't hold you up. The special permit obligates the applicant to replace plantings which fail. Considering that we're restarting really the project, this seems to be an appropriate time to replace plantings which have died or otherwise in fatal condition. The applicant has identified a single one in the lawn reclamation area, but there are many others in the lawn reclamation area which appear to have suffered substantial injury, perhaps due primarily to deer feasting, and there are many in the back of the switch gear, and there could be others of the 40+ trees in the northern screening area which might require replacement due to causes totally unrelated to deer activities. It would be good to have a fresh, healthy start. I think the warranty is pretty much 5 years. We're a couple of years into it already on many of the plantings that were installed about 2 years ago. So I can think of no reason not to clean it up and start with a clean slate right now. I thank the board for its consideration and the efforts that the members make to present Hopkinton and make it a good place to live. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Cutter. Mr. Shambo.
Hi, my name is Tom Shambo. I live at 15 Wilson Street in Hopkinton. I appreciate what the board has done, the comments. You guys are right on top of a lot of this, and I also appreciate what the applicant has put forth. I have a few comments. One, I really think through an order of conditions, and maybe you've already addressed this, that all boulders that are within the buffer zone need to be removed. I only saw one comment in the letter that said that they'd be removed on the back side of my property's buffer zone, and then it only said along the fence. So I think it'd be great if we could include all of them. I also think it would be good if we included, as Ed just talked about, all dead trees replaced. There's at least 5 or 6 or 7 of them. I know they show the one red one there on the lawn reclamation area, but I count 2 there and in other areas. So if we could have them all done at the same time this landscaping is done, I think that would be great. I might have missed it. Like I said, I didn't get to view this until just a short while ago, but the screening, I love it. But I like it to be dark green. On the renderings, it shows light green. I don't know if we can mandate that, but I think the dark green would blend much nicer. On the lawn reclamation area, I don't know how often it's to be mowed. It doesn't really state that. Is that once a year? So it'd be nice to know what the maintenance of that is supposed to be. And then I don't know what the proper notification is on future of the landscaping should a tree die a year or 2 or 3 down the road. Those are all the comments that I had, and I think I gave you some of the time back. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tom. So a couple of quick things there from the comments. And I think my intent is to include conditions for the removal of boulders from the buffer zone, removal of boulders from the area parallel to the access road to restore it to what it was previously. I think the idea of a schedule of actions with a date of completion, I'm not sure it makes sense to put together a full schedule of actions, but I do like the idea of having a completion date, particularly considering that this site is already up and running. I want to make sure that there is a means to make sure that the last of this gets done as we intend it to. So question for the applicant, for Chris, if we were to establish a date to have this completed by, from your perspective, what is a reasonable date to have it all done?
I believe based on the comments from today and, what we have presented, including some of those things that came up today, I think, 2 weeks, I think is all the time we need to really do this, maybe a week to get everything prepared. And once everything's finalized and we've, I think a couple weeks is enough for the actual construction, and maybe a week of just scheduled time to get up and running.
Okay, so May 1st? We'll give you 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think May 1st is reasonable. Yeah, I would agree to that.
Okay. And then on the plantings, I believe the plantings are already bonded. So those, and those are, I think there's a warranty in the original approval. So again, I guess my question for Chris is, for those plantings that have already died, when will those be replaced?
Well, I mean, we'll do the work in parallel with the new introduction of the new activities on site. So everything will be done in that span of those 2 weeks, right? I mean, we do have. I'm hoping that we get better take on some of them this time around, right? I mean, we are planting on bedrock in a lot of areas, and a lot of this whole kind of area is that, right? So it's some of them, I think a percentage wasn't going to take, and I think some did. So we'll do those replacements in parallel with the work to be done on site.
Yeah, particularly when they're planted in rough fill, it's hard to grow much there. So,
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, sir, this is Rory. I would just like to ask a little bit more time. I know Chris was very aggressive and his approach to appease the board, but again, weather dependent, sir, dependent on the nursery, the availability of plants. I would request that we allow until June 1st to do the work. Again, ideally it's done before that, but I don't want to have to come back to the board and say I didn't do it because of X, Y, and Z. And so my request is to extend time a little bit longer than May 1st to allow the work to occur, sir.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. And I'm just looking at the board really quickly. If I see nodding heads, I also thought 2 weeks was a little aggressive, but at the end of the day, I think that if this isn't done at the timeline that we specify in the conditions, then the next steps for us would be to revoke the special permit. So I'd rather go a little safe there, because it's not a process that I want to do. I want to make sure you guys get it done and that those plants get in the ground at a point in time where they have a good shot at growing. So let's plan on June 1st.
Thank you, sir.
All right, and then I guess my last question. So the plantings they're warranted. and I guess, but this is maybe a question for John. For new plantings that are going in now, are those, I'm assuming those are warranted from the time they're planted, whereas the replacement plants, I'm assuming would be warranted from the original planting, because we last I checked, like even nurseries typically don't warrant the replacement stock. They replace them once, and then at that point, that satisfies the warranty requirement. I don't know, John, if you have any additional details on how plant warranty / bonding works in this type of agreement.
Yeah, I'm just trying to open the special permit as it was filed, because the condition may give us clarity on that. So let me look at the special permit. It's not in the most recent amendment. It's probably in the original, so I need to just find that. So if you want to move on, I can come back.
Okay, we will do that. And John, while you're looking that up, and while I progress here, are you willing to take a stab at some additional conditions for those things that we discussed? And I think one was the removal of all boulders from the buffer zone. 2 was removal of boulders from the area parallel to the access road. And I think both of those were in reference to return it to its original state. 3rd is a date of completion for all changes and plantings by June 1st. I think those were the 3 additional conditions that I had.
Yeah, I can try and draft something up.
Okay. All right, let me go back to my outline here. And we will move forward just to review the decision criteria. So just as a reminder for folks, what we are evaluating here is that the planning board shall determine each of the following. 1, that the commercial solar photovoltaic installation conforms to the provisions of this article. 2, that the commercial solar photovoltaic installation will not be detrimental to the neighborhood of the town. 3, that environmental features of the site and surrounding areas are protected, and specifically surrounding areas will be protected from the proposed use by provision of adequate surface water drainage. Any questions, comments about that? The proposed findings we have, and these align with the decision criteria. 1, the proposed amendment complies with the standards as described in Article 31 of the zoning bylaws, which was in place at the time of the initial approval. So just as a reminder to folks, this has to comply with the prior commercial solar bylaw, not the current one that is in place. 2, the proposed amendment is not anticipated to adversely impact the health, welfare, or safety of residents and abutters. And 3, that no waivers are being requested as part of this application. Does anybody have any additional findings that they would like to add? And a question for John. No, I guess I was just debating whether we needed to strengthen the language on findings with regards to timeline of implementation here. And again, this is just, normally they couldn't get a CO without having complied with this, but I'm wondering if we should consider strengthening our findings in some capacity as to, for example, what we would plan to do if these, if the conditions were not, or if the project was not implemented in the timeline that we've agreed upon. John, any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I was trying to write the conditions.
Sorry.
One more time.
On the findings.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be cautious here because we don't have a whole lot of means to enforce what we have agreed with the applicant that they would do. And so I'm wondering if we should put an additional finding in place that specifically calls out that if these changes as discussed are not implemented by the date that we've determined, aka June 1st, that the planning board would initiate revoking of, or initiate process of revoking the special permit.
I would probably put that as a condition rather than a finding. You can maybe make a finding that the applicant has stated that all work will be completed or can be completed by June 1st, 2023. And so then you've got that finding that they made that statement, and then a condition going along with it saying that if all work has not been completed by June 1st, 2023, the board, or, you know, this, maybe we could say this amendment will be rendered null and void.
Okay. I'm looking at the board. How do people feel about that?
Sounds good.
I don't really know, sorry, through the chair.
Yes, Mary.
I don't really know what that means, though, that this amendment would be null and void.
Have to start over again.
Yeah, they'd have to start over again, and basically they would be out of compliance with their special permit at that point, because this amendment allows them to get back into compliance with a special permit, because right now they're not complying with the landscape plan that was approved.
Okay.
So if they don't do the work by June 1st and you revoke this amendment, they would then be out of compliance because they would have to adhere to the originally approved landscaping plan.
Okay.
And then we could initiate the
Action on the special.
action on the special permit.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my recommendation. I mean, I'm not an attorney, so I can't promise that it would hold up, but I don't know what other course of action the board would have in that situation. I think that clearly states that the applicant said that the work will be done by June 1st, and then that the condition is based off of that finding. So it's, you know, a good faith effort to allow the applicant to do the work necessary to remedy the situation. And if they don't do it as promised, then you are going back to the starting point.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Thank you, John. So the fourth proposed finding would be that all work associated with this amendment will be completed by June 1st, 2023.
So through the chair, I would say that's probably the condition. The finding, I would recommend saying the applicant has stated that all work set forth in this revised plan can be completed by June 1st, or will be completed by June 1st. You're making the finding that the applicant made that statement.
Okay, that's fine. So then I'll revise that to say the applicant has stated that all work associated with this amendment will be completed by June 1st, 2023.
And I would just get confirmation from the applicant that that's true.
All right. Chris and Rory, just confirming.
Yeah, confirmed.
Okay.
So we can vote on the findings while he's working on the conditions?
Yeah. Good suggestion, Mary. I will entertain a motion. Let me make sure I get this right. I will entertain a motion to accept and approve the findings as previously read aloud by me.
So moved, Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Ron Briefer.
Any further discussion on the findings? All right, seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron?
Ron, yes.
Elise?
Elise, yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. So we are aligned on the findings. Conditions, unfortunately, you guys know how I love reading these log. We don't have too many here, and John will have a few more to add, but proposed conditions, number one, all conditions set forth in the previously approved special permit and amendments related to this project shall remain in effect unless otherwise modified by this decision, including the type of species proposed for each planting location shown on the plan. 2, the applicant shall provide the board with a revised landscape plan that includes all revisions as discussed in this amendment review process before the planning board. 3, the applicant shall provide notification to the principal planner at least 7 days prior to planting so as to allow the principal planner a chance to inspect and review the conformance of the plantings to the approved plan. 4, the applicant shall ensure survival of the plantings shown in the approved plan for 5 years from the date of installation. If any plantings shown on the plan do not survive within the 5-year time frame, the applicant shall be responsible for replacing this planting with the same species of comparable height and size. If the applicant proposes to install a different species of a planting of different height or size, they must obtain written approval from the principal planner prior to installation. Mary.
I propose slight changes to condition 4.
Okay.
I agree that, you know, the plantings are fine. I think that we need to also include the survival or adequate maintenance of the mesh fence, because the covering, obviously it's supposed to last a long time. It's supposed to look good for a long time, but this mesh covering, I'd like to make sure that that also is lasting for 5 years in decent shape. And if not, if it get ripped in any places or anything like that, it is replaced.
I think that's a good suggestion. I think we could just add that as another condition. Chris
Sure.
and Rory, are you guys okay with that?
Yes.
sir.
Okay.
John, since you're working on conditions, perhaps you can put in, because I was just double checking, the plan itself does not specify the color at all of the coat of the mesh fence covering. So you could put perhaps that in the same condition, in the mesh covering that's going to be dark green, and then the length of maintenance.
Good suggestion, Mary. Matthew.
Sorry, through the chair. Before we move on, Mary, can you just state what, so I've got the proposed mesh fence screening shall be dark green in color. What was the maintenance portion?
So the maintenance was that it should be maintained in good condition for 5 years. And if there's any damage to portions of it, that portion would be replaced.
Can I make a suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of 5 years, that the mesh screening be maintained for the perpetuity of the life of the array?
I would love that.
All right, Matthew.
Potentially similar point, looking at point 4, as shown on the screen right now. Do we need to address how long the lawn there is going to be maintained by the project owner? And
Yes, good question. And back to Chris, I know that I think we had previously aligned on the frequency of which that would be mowed. Can you remind me of what you had envisioned?
I don't specifically recall I think Ahmed, if he's on here, he could possibly comment to that. I think I remember exactly what he was to say to that. Ahmed, can you comment to that?
My hope is it can just be looped in with the periodic site maintenance. Ahmed?
I've been muted.
I see he's unmuted on our end. But Ahmed, we can't hear you. All right. Matthew, do you have a recommendation there? And I don't know. I'll just share my thoughts. I'm a little cautious because it's not meant to be manicured lawn. I think so this to me is not something that needs to be mowed, via a lawn service of some kind. I think it's more, the idea here is that it returns to some natural state. That's my interpretation of it. I just don't have any idea as to what type of frequency that might need.
I don't either. So,
Chris or Rory, could you propose a recommendation for that?
But bi-weekly is not unreasonable. Maybe not every week, but every 2 weeks.
Okay. Bi-weekly is reasonable to you?
I think that's a little too frequent. I would probably say twice per season would be something that the client would agree to.
Mary.
Through the chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Shambo what he hoped for in relation to the lawn reclamation area specifically. And I also want to also, when we get back to the board deciding on the conditions, the mowing would not necessarily take place in the same frequency for, like, say, the side of the driveway, because that is intended to create more screening from the street. So, but it may be different for the lawn reclamation area next to Mr. Shambo's property.
So, sorry, before Mr. Shambo responds, Mary, I guess I wasn't seeing the lawn reclamation area as any different from the other areas, and maybe I'm mistaken there. I just think that, and I don't recall it perhaps completely accurately, but I think that it's gone through some different iterations of understanding through the years, and that's why I wanted to get Mr. Shambo. He's got much better memory of this and probably notes on it. So just in terms of what he was expecting and hoping for in that particular area. Tom,
and I'm not saying that we'll definitely agree to everything and have it the same, but I just want to get his thoughts on it.
Tom Shambo, 15 Wilson Street. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm definitely not asking for rose beds. The lawn reclamation originally was to reclaim, meaning get rid of the grass and plant a whole bunch of trees so that it would become eventually forest. That got interpreted, I think, in a different way by the second group that owned this property now, or the project. And so when we talked, I said, okay, that's fine if you just want to plant what you're going to plant here, but if there's going to be grass there, it's going to grow a foot and a half, 2 foot tall. Could we, make sure that it gets mowed so that it looks decent? It does not have to be landscaped lawn. There's not going to be a park or anything there. But twice a season seems a little shallow to me. Once every 4 to 6 weeks would be nice. The other thing I would offer is the grass tends to grow more heavily in the June timeframe, May, June, July timeframe, and then maybe again in September, October when fall and cooler weather comes about. So maybe it's a couple of times in the May, June, July timeframe, and once in the fall before winter. That's what I was hoping.
So, I guess I want to go back to the original intent here, because I think what we can't do is we can't have them mow it and have it return to forest. So, and I also want to be careful that we're not over engineering or over specifying here. I mean, that this is, so I'm a little cautious about getting so detailed on what the mowing schedule is. but I guess my question to you, Tom, I mean, to me, there's two ways. Either one, generally speaking, in New England, a seeded area will eventually be reclaimed as forest with other things that are growing in it. So option one would be to, seed it, let it grow, and eventually that will become part of the buffer zone, part of the forest area, or two, treat it as a long lawn of some kind that does need to be maintained. And, I don't, to me, I still like the idea of reclaiming it because I think that's more in line with what the space is around it. I like that better than having to have a mowing schedule of which may or may not get done, of which somebody has to go out and inspect and observe, and of which there's not a lot we can do if they don't do it. That's just my take, but I'm curious of those two options of either let it be reclaimed by the wild or mow it with some frequency if you have a preference of those two.
I don't know a whole lot about what happens to planted grass, I did take some pictures, and I was hopeful that I would have seen some small trees start to grow up in that area because they didn't mow it all last year, all last season. Right now, it's just like a kid with long hair. It's just flopped down, grass that's flopped down on the dirt itself, or the lawn. So I would like it to go back to some kind of wild, forest, but without the planting of some trees to make that happen. I just don't know if seeds will get in through the grasses. I just don't know. I'm not a landscape guy. I don't know.
Ahmed has his hand raised. Ahmed, we can't hear you. All right, we lost him. Lowered his hand. Ed, did you have another comment, Ed?
I had a question, and have we, and maybe I've missed it, and I apologize for that, but have we handled the issue of picking up the terms of the letter and putting them into the actual plan, or however that has to be done? I'm really trying to make sure that we pick up the removal of the boulders that are very close to the street.
Yep. So we are conditioning that.
Okay.
As part of our approval.
The other thing there was an issue raised about the warranty for the plantings, and I would think that the warranty for the plantings would normally run from the time the certificate of compliance was issued. Otherwise, you could have a situation where for 8 years, the applicant is fooling around and maybe running the operation, but never brings it to closure. And they'll lead up to 5-year warranty, and nobody will be able to exercise it because everything was up in the air. So I think that warranty should run from when there's kind of the turnover to the licensee in effect. So that would be my suggestion.
Our standard protocol on this is warranty from time of planting. So I'm comfortable with that. I think a 5-year warranty is still a pretty good one. So that's my take, and I'll let the members of the planning board if they want to propose something different here. But I'm eager to get this wrapped up. We've been talking about this at I don't know how many meetings now, so I don't want to come in with new requirement or new asks at this point. So Mr. Cutter, I appreciate the suggestion, and just I want to. I think we've got a pretty good plan. I agree with the conditions that we've already started to discuss, but I'd prefer to not introduce more new topics.
I'll be quiet and not say it might not be new, but.
All right. So going back to conditions. And it looks like maybe we lost John for a second here. Oh, John's there. All right. John, do you have some proposed conditions for us?
I do. I've got 5. All right. So number 5, The applicant shall remove all boulders in the buffer areas along the entrance such that the condition returns to the condition present prior to construction. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 6, the applicant shall remove all boulders in the area along the fence adjacent to the property line of 15 Wilson Street such that the condition returns to the condition present prior to construction. Number 7, the applicant shall complete all work set forth in the approved plans by June 1, 2023. If work is not complete by that date, this decision shall be rendered null and void unless this date is extended by the board. Number 8, the proposed mesh fence screening shall be dark green in color. The applicant shall maintain the mesh screening in good condition for the life of the array. Okay. Number 9, and this is a new one just based off of this conversation with Ed and the chair. Planting installed shall be guaranteed by the applicant for 5 years from the date of installation. The applicant shall replace any and all plantings that do not survive within this 5-year period.
So John, question on that, so we have the existing condition 4, which speaks to the warranty. I guess
Oh, yep. Okay. I'll take that one out.
All right.
Yep. Sorry.
And Mary.
So I had a question, regarding the shall replace within the 5-year period. So that obviously that's, the length of time that they need to replace any dead ones, but, shouldn't it be inspected like by them every year and then the replacement be done? Do we need to specify that? Because it just seems like they could wait till the end of 5 years and say, oh, now I see the dead ones, I'll put in some new ones. So, and that's really not the intent.
So through the chair, in reality, I think it should be the town or the town inspecting, and that could be from the neighbors saying, oh, hey, there's a dead couple trees over here. And then the town can go out and inspect and then require the applicant to replace them. I mean, if we rely on the applicant to inspect, I doubt any are going to be reported until the 5-year period.
Okay.
I think the other piece of it, Mary, is that this does tie to the landscaping bond as well. So that's the leverage
right.
that we have.
Yeah. And I haven't looked at the old conditions, but we did have conditions about after the screening is all installed, that it is inspected at several seasons thereafter, just to make sure that the screening was adequate. I recall that just from memory. I don't know exactly how the condition was worded, but that I think is still in place because that was an original condition. So
through the chair.
Yes, John.
Is it following planting, the effectiveness of the installed screening shall be reevaluated during the non-foliar season?
Yes, that's the one.
So that's not monitoring for dead.
No, that's not monitoring for dead ones. That's a separate issue. Yeah. So, so that part, definitely needs to be done, but then the monitoring for dead ones should be done, I think, in time for replacements to be put in each growing season. So it seems like about once a year.
Sorry, who's going to do the inspection?
John had suggested someone from the town, but I don't know who.
So it would be the zoning enforcement official in name, right? Because they enforce the permits. In reality, it's going to either be zoning enforcement official, me, or whoever else in the department. Should Tom and Ed see something dead, they'll reach out to us, and then we'll have zoning enforcement official write up a letter. I think that's going to be the best process.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Other comments or questions about the proposed conditions read aloud by either me or by our principal planner? And to the applicant, to Chris and Rory, you guys are comfortable with those conditions as was previously read aloud?
Yes.
Okay. All right, at this point, we will entertain any final comments from either the board or the public before we take a vote. Start with the board. Seeing none, I'll open up to the public to see if there's any last comments before we vote.
Yes, Ed?
Yes, Ed.
We agreed that trees that are presently dead will be remedied within this by June 1st.
The applicant has agreed to that. We did not specify that as part of the conditions, but those dead trees are covered under the warranty in the original special permit.
But they could wait 3 more years or something, or it gets missed. I worry about that. I can think of no good reason why they shouldn't be cleaned up right now. So I suggest that's what happened.
John, go ahead.
Through the chair, I would also interpret those plantings that are already in place as plantings shown on the plan. So we have condition 4 says the applicant shall ensure survival of the plantings shown on the approved plan for 5 years from the date of installation. So those have been installed less than 5 years from now and they are on the plan. So they should be replaced at this point. And those may have been approved or installed 2 years ago. So they might have 3 more years left in them, but they are captured under this condition and under the previous special permit conditions.
Mary, go ahead.
And there are a number of items in red on the plans that talk about this is a deceased one and it will be replaced. So and it is specified right on the plans. Fill in holes.
If I might, I believe there's only one mention of one plant that's going to be replaced, and that could create a negative implication that others aren't to be. I think it should be totally clear that if there's dead wood out there at this point, it ought to be removed and replaced.
So I think what Mr. Gelsich is saying that the condition as it's written, if any plantings shown on the plan do not survive within the 5-year time frame, the applicant shall be responsible to replace this planting with the same species. So if they die, they're obligated to replace them.
But we'd also added the bit about it being inspected every year so that they'll be replaced immediately, right? So
Through the chair, we didn't add anything about it being inspected every year. I think that's just going to happen.
okay. But that those will be replaced within the next growing season, not 5 years from now.
So what we're saying is that the applicant is required to ensure survival. And if at any time they are dead, then they are not surviving and they're obligated to replace it. The challenge I think we have here is that, again, there's limited means by which we can enforce it other than withholding bond. So I just don't, I feel like I just don't know, you know, if they don't replace it or they replace it the following year, I'm not really sure what action we can take. So I just don't know, you know, aside from withholding bond, I'm not clear on what action we can take. John, maybe you have an idea.
I just added a sentence to condition 4 that says these replacements shall be installed during the next possible growing season or planting season. I'll change it to planting season.
Good suggestion. That makes sense. Mary, does that work for you?
And I think, you know, what Mr. Cutter was talking about was that, you know, anything that's not represented on the plan today that we're going to approve, the amended landscaping plan. Obviously, all those trees are going to be put in that they are specifying, but if any additional ones are dead, they'd replace them at the same time. So it would all be done by June 1st. And that's, I don't know if it's necessary to say that beyond what we've already put in there for the replacement schedule of within the next growing season. Seems to me that it would behoove them to do it right away. So it would be easier for them to do it right away. So
John, go ahead.
Did we ever come to a resolution on the lawn reclamation area?
Let's finish the planting requirements, and then we'll get back to the lawn reclamation area. So, sorry. So what we have is we have the language there that if something is dead, it needs to be replaced by the next growing season. The question is does that refer to the new plantings that are called out in this amendment or the previous plantings that have already been planted? And I guess my question, maybe just to simplify this before we have too much debate about it, is to the applicants, are you comfortable if the condition specifies that all plantings in the site, if they do not survive, will be replaced in the next growing season?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's our pathway forward. And that way all the plants are covered and there's a timeline in which they need to be replaced. Sound okay? All right, so John, does that make, do you want to read aloud that condition again, just so that we have that on the record?
Yeah, correct me if I missed anything. The applicant shall ensure survival of all the plantings shown on the approved plan for 5 years from the date of the installation. If any plantings, so that should say,
if any plantings shown on the plan do not survive within the 5-year time frame, the applicant shall be responsible for replacing this planting with the same species of comparable height or size within the next growing season. If the applicant proposes to install a different species of a planting of different height or size, they must obtain written approval from the principal planner prior to installation.
yeah, so I don't have in the next growing season. I have a separate sentence at the end of that that says these replacement plantings shall be installed during the next possible planting season.
Okay.
My concern is the interpretation of the date of the installation. Maybe the date of the planting.
I think what you proposed is fine.
Keep it installation?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, back to the lawn reclamation topic. Yes.
Can I just make a suggestion? If the intent is for it to grow back into a natural state, maybe we add a condition that says the lawn reclamation area will be seeded with a native species, pollinator-friendly wildflower seed mix.
Seems reasonable.
And then there would be no mowing.
Yep.
That. But I don't want to assume that that's okay with everybody.
I'm good with that. I think that's the original intent. Mary?
Hasn't it already been seeded?
I think it was seeded with grass. So what John was suggesting that it be seeded with a mix that has more varied species and is pollinator friendly, which is going to
That works for me.
grow something different. Chris and Rory, you guys comfortable with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. All right, clear as mud. All right. So, final comments. Any other final comments from the board? Any other final comments from the public? All right, I think we are ready for a vote. So I will entertain a motion that the board amend the special permit as proposed with the conditions that were previously read aloud by the chair.
And John.
And John. Thank you, John, our principal planner.
So moved, Mary Larson Marlowe.
Rob, second.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Jane, yes.
Ron? Did we lose?
We did.
We lost Ron. Okay. Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. John?
Did we vote on the findings? Did I miss that?
We did vote on the findings. While you were drafting the conditions, we voted on the findings.
Okay.
All right. And then on that note, I will entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
Wait. That's it? Did we do the condition? I thought there was one more step.
No.
It's
Nope.
all done?
We
Okay,
did it.
so moved.
Pop the champagne.
Yeah, no kidding.
Second.
All right. So no further discussion. Mary, how do you vote on closing the hearing?
Mary Larson Marlis, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Elise?
Sorry. Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. So, Chris, Rory, and Ahmed, it's been fun. Look forward to seeing this wrapped up. Appreciate your flexibility on moving the gate. I think that's a better solution. And to both Mr. Shambo and Mr. Cutter, we appreciate your patience as we work through this. Yeah, I'm glad that we are through this one and that we have some resolution here. I know this has been a long time coming. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and John. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Have a good night. All right. Our final administrative items that we have tonight, we did want to include our board liaison updates, and wanted to start with an update from our pedestrian connectivity public input session. And Matthew has been kind enough to prepare some notes and comments from that. So Matthew, go ahead.
Sure, I will try to share which portion of screen. I've never shared in Zoom before, so this could go horribly bad. I have no idea what I'm sharing. Is this sharing anything or?
Not yet.
Almost. It's thinking about it. And Matthew, I don't think you necessarily need to share. You can go ahead and just comment on them as well. I think we could probably keep this reasonably short if people. It was recorded, and I mean, there's some other options for people if they want to go through the details. And we have your notes that you shared. So
excellent.
If you want to just talk to it, I think that's probably okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do it this way. Very quickly, last March, in March, we had a public input session to talk about how we want to expand trails and multi-use and sidewalks in the community to make it safer for recreation, people to get around town as pedestrians, obviously. Roughly 18 people joined the Zoom call, and I say roughly because people joined and dropped throughout, and that includes the presenters. People spoke, as they spoke, they talked about their involvement in other trails initiatives, involvement with the elderly, and involvement and concerns for people with children, pushing strollers, school-aged kids moving around. But I think in all those cases, people were speaking for themselves rather than any specific committee, even if they were involved in those. I just want to draw a little heat map based on where people were announced they were from throughout the town. So it's pretty broad for the 18 people, but definitely focused along the center of town and the kind of lateral axis. So one of the recurring themes was that people wanted to plan. Obviously, that was the first step, was us getting public input into that plan. Then next steps, we're already looking at how do we use that input to shape a plan, and obviously with limited funding, how do we prioritize what we want to do for the town. We talked about various sources of funding, DOT for larger projects, smaller connectivity aspects such as trails can be picked up by other committees where those fall within their purviews, which leaves us to push for more sidewalks versus smaller trails. There's an open question of how much we can fund directly per year. Obviously, the budget is tight for the town, but having a multi-year plan allows us to maximize funding opportunities as they present themselves, and being able to jump on any opportunities that we see. So there's three main things, areas that we were looking for input, like what makes a good sidewalk. As I said, how do we prioritize with limited funds? And then we looked at some scenarios to help flesh out that prioritizations, what the members of the public thought was more important to focus on, and more importantly, why they would choose certain scenarios versus others. The main thing with good sidewalks seemed to be how people were comfortable walking. So one of those functionally a durable sidewalk that wasn't breaking, that was a nice stable sidewalk. And another recurring theme is don't make me uncomfortable walking. People didn't like something that was too narrow, and most importantly, not too close to high-speed traffic. Walking along 85, for instance, with traffic coming along the sidewalks right next to the road, that's something that was raised as something that made people feel a little bit uncomfortable. And then just sidewalks that changed elevation. People had to move around obstacles that otherwise hard to navigate. Just made it more difficult for people to use those sidewalks. In some cases, people would be more interested going a little bit longer if it got them away from some of those difficult to navigate or high-speed roads. Another recurring theme was people were focusing on safety over prioritization, especially for areas where there are a lot of children or elderly people that might have a little bit more difficulty with narrow sidewalks or avoiding cars. We looked at people want to prioritize based on pedestrian usage. One contrast was not necessarily the volume of traffic on a road. In some cases, the roads might have a lot of cars, but there's not a lot of people. Part of Lumber Street, I think, was raised as an example there. But looking where can we do the most good and get the biggest return on investment in terms of people using the sidewalks and helping people out. There's also some low-hanging fruit that was raised, such as almost complete loops, where people might have most of a loop to walk around, but there's a small segment where people have to walk on a road. I believe Clinton Street next to Main Street was an example there. And then other sections where the sidewalk basically jumps from one side of the road to the other and back. So people are stuck crossing a busy road to try and stay on the sidewalk. A recurring theme then was also just connecting parts of the town that have been separated, such as over I-495. And so that's one of the examples that we looked at in terms of a larger project, connecting across I-495 versus connecting down to the MBTA stop in Southborough, and also weighing those larger projects versus doing more smaller and cheaper projects and how people wanted to prioritize between those. Some of the small projects that people thought were valuable were near the schools on Holt Street, where there's no sidewalks, and other sections around there where older kids often walk home from school while their parents are still working, or other situations like that. And right now they're stuck walking on the sidewalk, walking on the road, or walking on the grass, and there's just a lot of fast moving traffic in that area. We also talked about how for other small projects, connecting trails might not be the best use of funds, since there's other parts of the town that other committees in town that are focusing on that, as they are Upper Charles Trail, Trails committees, where they might be able to secure the funding to complete those aspects themselves. But at the same time, doesn't mean that we shouldn't include those as part of a master plan, so that we can understand how the overall connection of multi-use trails, sidewalks, all connect together and help us build towards connected Hopkinton. Looking specifically at the Southborough, 85 down to Southborough, some of the comments were there's definitely very beneficial to connect Hopkinton to the rail station, but at the same time, as a approximately 3 mile stretch of road, it's probably a little bit ambitious. And there's again, with the Upper Charles Trail and other projects in town, there might be better options than a sidewalk. And even if there are those mixed use paths, it's still quite long. Some people recommended a shuttle instead, just to go quicker from Main Street, for instance, or downtown down to the train station, if we wanted to connect those together. One of the things that had the broadest support during the meeting came up repeatedly was connecting across 495, specifically from Lumber Street over to Downey Street. There was a lot of expected utilization, so it hit the biggest bang for the buck in terms of expected people that would use it, based on public opinion in the meeting. Some people commented that right now they don't go to the other part of town. They just get in their car and they drive someplace else because it's just too difficult to cross 495. They might as well go someplace else. Whereas if they had a safe way of crossing, it would feel a lot more connected in town. They'd stay in town and make use of resources much more frequently. So the general summarization that came out of the meeting, and I think Gary did a good job of summarizing this at the end, was that safety was the principal concern that people kept raising, especially for potentially vulnerable parts of the community, such as children walking to or from school, or just getting to the playground or other parts of town. Children trying to get to work if they're working at Price Chopper, for instance. 495 in general was a common point that a lot of people would like to see a connection across, going from Lumber to Downey, connecting the Lake District with the downtown district. And at the same time, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that might be more readily accessible on an annual budget with the town meeting, where we can help improve quality of life just by completing small segments of the sidewalks. And that was generally a summary. Working on building out a plan, and that will help us maximize any opportunities that we're able to find.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Just to reiterate, I think generally good participation for those kinds of things. I think it's a testament to the interest that people have, and clearly some work for us to do, but the good support. And I appreciate Matthew and Jane's involvement, along with a few other folks that have been super helpful thus far. Any other board liaison updates from folks? Jane?
Just quickly, 3 points for the Open Space Preservation Commission.
Mhm.
We continue to appraise open spaces in Hopkinton for land acquisitions. We continue to enforce folks who happen to be encroaching on town open space. And thirdly, we continue to battle invasive species and how we can educate people in town. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Any other updates? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jane and Matthew. And I think certainly I know we all like to sort of hear what's going on in our liaison committees. So if folks along the way have other updates, by all means, we can get that on the schedule and share. So just let us know prior to the meeting. So I think the last item on our agenda is meeting minutes, and we've got too many files open here.
Through the chair.
Yes, Stephanie.
I was not able to I thought I uploaded them and I didn't have them, and it was too late in the day to want to send those out.
Yes. So that's what I was going to say, is that our last agenda item is to adjourn.
Exactly.
So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. So no further discussion. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And Gary is a yes as well. Thank you all. A little painful at times tonight, but I'm happy that we got through a couple that have been on our agendas for a long time. John, what do we have for signatures? We need people to come sign. Is it just me?
Just you.
Just me. All right. Well, maybe tomorrow night I'll get there before 7.
Okay.
Is that too early?
Well, I will do my best to get these written up by tomorrow.
You know what? If that doesn't happen, then I can do it on Friday. I know you won't be there, but I'm sure someone will be there to let me sign them. So, all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Good night.
Have a good night.